The city of Serrano Verde woke up slowly that May morning. The rooster crowed 3 times before the sun finally decided to appear. And when it finally rose in the sky, it found Rosaura Nascimento Ferreira already up, sweeping the yard of the house with that worn-out broom she refused to throw away. "This broom has history," she would say to anyone willing to listen. "My mother swept away a lot of pain with it. So did." Rosaura was 45 years old and carried each of those years with the dignity of someone who had truly lived. She wasn't the type of woman who appeared on magazine covers. She wore flowered cotton blouses, skirts that went past the knee, and her hair tied in a simple bun that never stayed completely neat. There was always a strand escaping, always something out of place. But when she smiled, the world became a little bit more beautiful. The problem was that few people stopped to notice that smile. "Rosaura, for the love of God, don't go to the fair like that. You look like a scarecrow," Dulce, her younger sister, would say. The sisters? Ah, the sisters. Dulce and Marilyn were the kind of women that Serrano Verde admired. Well-dressed, well-spoken, always with the right nail polish, color, and hair and fashion. Married young, arranged husbands, beautiful houses, and they had a specialty they cultivated with great talent, making fun of Rosaura. "Hey, Rosaura, have you ever thought about finding a man?" Marilyn would ask on a Sunday afternoon while peeling an orange on the porch. "Because you're getting older, you know." "Leave her alone," Marilyn Dulce would interrupt with a little laugh. "The men of Serrano Verde already know her too well. No one is going to want to marry a woman who shows up at the party with the wrong shoes and still thinks it looks good." Rosaura heard everything. She almost never answered. She would bite her lip, lower her head, and when no one was looking, she would wipe the corner of her eye with her apron. Donna Geralda, their mother, saw everything from her corner. She was 81 years old, with knees that creaked, but with a wisdom that never rusted. One time, after her daughters had left and Rosaura was alone washing the dishes, the old woman dragged herself to the kitchen and placed her hand on her daughter's shoulder. "My daughter," she said slowly, "a flower that grows in a difficult place takes longer to bloom. But when it does, it perfumes twice as much." Rosaura smiled, but the smile was wet with tears. "Mom, it's been so long that I've given up on waiting." "Don't confuse tiredness with giving up," the old woman replied. "You haven't given up. You just haven't yet found someone who deserves what you have to give." Rosaura's life had a simple and honest routine. She woke up early, took care of the small vegetable garden she kept behind the house, went to the fair on Tuesdays and Fridays, helped Donna Geralda with her medicines and appointments. And in the afternoon, she would sit on the sidewalk doing crochet. Only luxury she allowed herself. The people of Serrano Verde respected her. No one spoke ill of her openly, but few remembered to invite her to anything. She was the kind of person everyone considered good, but no one thought of first when the party started. "Rosaura is fine," they would say. "Rosaura can handle it." And she did. She always did. With a strength she herself didn't know where it came from. It was on an afternoon in June, when the coffee plants were in their last flowering of the year, that the whole city stopped to talk about the same subject. They bought the Pedrera farm. A man from out of town. They say he has money. He's a widower girl. A widower with no children. The post office turned into a stage. Mr. Benedito's little market filled with people, analyzing the matter as if it were an election. Dulce and Marilyn didn't waste time. They fixed their purses, touched up their hair, and went for a walk near the farm. Along the path everyone knew the man used. Rosaura didn't go anywhere. She stayed home, making lunch. Adriano Camargo arrived in Serrano Verde in a white pickup truck covered in road dust. 59 years of life showed in the wrinkles on his forehead and the gray at his temples. But his eyes were those of a man who still believed in new beginnings. He had come from the countryside. He had sold the farm he had built with his first wife, Marlena, who had passed away from heart disease 6 years earlier. With no children and no roots holding him, he decided it was time to start over on new ground. "Why Serrano Verde?" The notary who handled the deed asked. "My father was from there. Adriano answered simply. I want to die near where he was born. The Pedrera farm had 240 acres of coffee, a main house that needed renovation, and a water well that sang as if it had a soul. Adriano arrived and stood for an hour by the edge of the well, listening to that sound. This place has life, he said to himself. Good life. The first week was hard work, inspecting the property, talking to the workers, discovering what was good and what needed fixing. Adriano was not a man to sit on the porch and give orders. He put on his hat, stuck his boots in the mud, and went along with them. That's how he met Rosaura. It was a Saturday morning. The harvest period had begun, and the farm was hiring people from the region to help pick the coffee. Rosaura showed up with other women. She was one of the best pickers in the region, known for having a gentle hand and not damaging the branches. Adriano was walking between the rows of coffee plants when he saw her. She was focused, her agile fingers running through the branches heavy with red beans, softly humming a song he didn't know. She wore a faded yellow cotton blouse, a headscarf, and sandals on her feet. She was sweating. She smiled at the woman beside her without stopping her work. Adriano stopped. It wasn't the beauty of a soap opera that he was seeing. It was something else. It was someone who was completely present in what she was doing, without affectation, without performance. Just present. What's your name? He asked, approaching. Rosaura got a fright, looked up, and saw the farmer. She turned as red as the beans she was holding. Adriano Camargo, he extended his hand, the owner of this mess here. She gave a little laugh, shook his hand firmly, and went back to work. Adriano stood there a minute longer than he should have, then continued walking. There are people who are beautiful when they smile. She was beautiful when she worked. I had never seen that before. Adriano's thought that day. In the following days, Adriano began to notice details that would normally go unnoticed. Rosaura was the first to arrive and the last to complain. If someone got hurt, she was the one who ran with water and a cloth. If the afternoon suddenly grew cold, she was the one who shared her scarf with the coworker who hadn't brought one. On a Tuesday afternoon, the sky suddenly darkened. Heavy rain, the kind the countryside knows how to deliver. Without warning, without ceremony, everyone ran to the shed. Adriano left the office and saw a scene he would never forget. Rosaura was coming back from fetching a small child who had been left in the middle of the coffee field, holding the little girl in her arms, soaked from head to toe, running while keeping the child well protected under her arms. She reached the shed, handed the girl to her mother, shook the water from her hair, and laughed. What a downpour, she said, animated, as if she had gained something instead of lost. Adriano watched from the porch. He felt in his chest that pressure that older men know how to recognize. It wasn't desire, it was admiration, the deepest kind. He started talking to her, first about the coffee, about the weather, about the land, then about other things. He discovered that Rosaura knew a little about everything. She knew medicinal plants. She could predict rain by the wind, and she told stories with the talent of someone who grew up without television, but with grandparents full of words. Who did you learn all this from? He asked one afternoon as they both sat in the shade of a gamalera tree waiting for the rain to pass. From life, she answered, without drama. Life is a tough teacher, but it teaches, right? Have you ever been happy? She thought for a moment. I have happy moments every week. When the garden produces, when my mother laughs, when the coffee is well harvested, when I finish a crochet piece. Being happy from time to time is what most people have. I don't complain. Adriano fell silent. He thought about how many times in life he had confused happiness with the absence of pain, and he realized that Rosaura knew something he was still learning. In Serrano Verde, the gossip spread. It always does. The farmer is noticing Rosaura. Dulcie choked on her coffee. Rosaura. My sister, Rosaura. With those clothes of hers, the same one. Marilyn ran to tell her sister, who ran to speak with Rosaura. Rosaura, for the love of God, at least buy a new blouse. A dress. Do something with that hair. Rosaura looked at her sister. Marilyn, If he wants me because of a new blouse, then he doesn't really want to be with me. Marilyn was left speechless. It was the first time in her life that Rosaura had left her without an answer. The request to date came on an August afternoon, when the coffee plants were resting and the sun had that golden tone that only appears in the late afternoon in the countryside. Adriano went to Rosaura's house. He knocked on the door with his hat in his hand. Donna Geralda opened the door and looked him up and down with those eyes that saw beyond things. "I already knew you would come," the old woman said, and stepped aside without further ceremony. Rosaura was in the kitchen. She heard his voice and came out drying her hands on her apron. "Adriano, what is it? Is there a problem at the farm?" "There's no problem at the farm," he said, visibly nervous, which made Rosaura realize he was human like anyone else. "The problem is me. You. I'm having trouble working properly. I keep thinking about a woman who picks coffee in yellow, sings softly, doesn't ask anything from anyone, and carries a child in the rain like it's the most ordinary thing." Rosaura opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. "Adriano, I know you don't owe me anything. I know I'm older. I'm from out of town. I'm a widower, and I still have a lot to learn about this land. But I want to learn by your side, if you let me." The silence that followed lasted 3 seconds. For Adriano, it lasted an eternity. Rosaura felt her throat tighten. 45 years of life. 45 years hearing that no one would want her. 45 years being the sister who didn't know how to dress, who didn't know how to adorn herself, who was good for work, but not for love. And now here was a man, hat in hand, nervous like a boy, asking to learn about life by her side. Her eyes filled with tears. She didn't try to hide them. "Adriano," she said, her voice firm even through the tears. "I am what you're seeing. I don't have party clothes. I don't know how to dance properly. My hair never stays neat the way it should. I'm a simple woman. I know," he said. "That's exactly what brought me here." The courtship began slowly, as things do with adults. Without rush, without fleeting passion. On Sundays, Adriano would go have lunch. Donna Geralda's house. He helped the old woman up the stairs. He listened to her stories without looking at the clock. Rosaura stayed in the kitchen, pretending she wasn't smiling the whole time. The sisters gradually came to a new understanding of reality. Dolsa was the first to change. It was a September afternoon. She arrived at Rosaura's house unannounced, found her sister crocheting on the porch, and sat beside her without saying anything for a while. "Rosaura," she said finally, "I need to apologize." Rosaura stopped crocheting. "I said a lot of nonsense in your life. A lot of things I shouldn't have. I thought I was helping you, but I was hurting you." Dulcie's voice broke. "You are the kindest woman I know, and I spent years treating you like you were less. Forgive me." Rosaura looked at her sister. She saw there not the woman who had humiliated her for years, but the girl who had grown up beside her, who had also learned wrong, who also needed love. "You're already forgiven," she said simply. "Even before you asked," Dulce cried. Rosaura did too, and the two of them stayed there hugging on the porch until the sun went down. Marilyn took a little longer. Her pride was more stubborn. But the day came during a June festival in the city, when she saw her sister dancing with Adriano, not knowing how to dance properly, stepping on his feet, laughing at herself, and saw him laughing along, holding her carefully, with no desire to be anywhere else. Marilyn felt that thing we sometimes feel when we see someone we loved, being happy in a way we didn't expect. A mixture of shame and joy that has no name. She approached her sister later, when the band stopped playing. "Rosaura," she said, "I was very wrong about you. Very wrong." "I know," Rosaura replied, "and I love you just the same." The wedding took place on a Saturday in November, in the community hall of Serrano Verde, decorated with field flowers that the guests themselves had brought. Rosaura wore a simple white cotton dress, with lace she had made by hand in the months leading up to the big day. Her hair was tied up, but with one strand escaping, there's always a strand escaping. Adriano waited at the improvised altar with his hat in his hand. The same gesture he had made when he came to ask her to date. When he saw Rosaura enter, held by the arm of Donna Geralda, who had insisted on walking her daughter down, he couldn't hold back his tears. "What a crybaby man," Dulce whispered to Marilyn. "Let him be," Marilyn replied, her own eyes misty. "He knows what he won." In the speech he gave after dinner, Adriano spoke little. He wasn't a man of many public words, but he said something that Serrano Verde would not forget anytime soon. "I traveled many kilometers, thinking I was going to restart my life. I didn't know I would discover, in a row of coffee plants, that the most beautiful life is not the one we restarted, it's the one we finally learned to see." Donna Geralda, sitting in the front row, nodded as if to say, "I always knew. The world has a perverse way of convincing simple people that they are worth less. Rosaura was not less. She never was. She was different, and difference, in the hands of fear, becomes a target, but in the hands of those who truly see, it becomes a treasure. There is no woman that no one wants. There is only a man who has not yet learned to look at what really matters." The sisters who mocked had learned to measure value by what appears on the outside. It's not their fault. The world taught them that, but true love does not read labels. True love arrives when you least expect it, finds you exactly as you are, and says, "It's you. It has always been you." It is never too late to be loved. It is never too late to bloom. Rosaura bloomed at 45 years old, among rows of coffee, with calloused hands and hair that was always escaping from its place, and it was precisely because of that nod in spite of it. If you are the Rosaura of your family, of T's story, don't change, wait. Whoever has eyes to see, will see. And if you are the Dulce or the Marylan of this story, it is never too late to ask for forgiveness. True love also forgives. Did you like this story? Subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell so you don't miss any stories. Leave your comment below. Which character touched your heart? Don Mostrosora, Adriano, Donna Geralda, Dulce, or Marilyn? Do you know Annie Rosaura in your life? Tell us about her and tell us. Which city are you watching from? Write the name of your city below. We love knowing where each of you is from. Share this with someone who needs to hear this story today.